All right, I think that was 2 seconds. Are you
Yeah, I
guys
think
good
we're
for me
good.
to start?
Yeah, we're good.
All good here.
Awesome. So, hello, I am Chuck White, designer of Robot Boxing League. It is a fast-paced 1 to 2 player strategic movement deck building arena brawler. In RBL, you pilot themed robots, customizing them with new moves and upgrades mid-fight. It is designed for ages 14 and up, playing in about 30 to 60 minutes with a 5 to 10 minute teach with 3 game modes and 2 difficulties. So it is set in the near future world where robot fighting is the main sport, pitting customized robots against each other in a sponsor driven match. Contestants will clash in a raised arena, which right now is the top of the box. You will be dodging, blocking, and attacking each other, moving around the ring with this. As you start taking damage, each robot has a set of batteries that they use to fuel them. So as they take damage, you will start knocking down your batteries one by one. And as you start taking more and more damage, once you get all the way to the bottom, just like in real boxing, boxers have about 10 seconds to get back up and continue the fight. The robots have a reboot mechanic, a way of kind of restarting their core piece of energy. So the way we do this is with a reboot deck of these green and red cards. So we shuffle this and you keep drawing until you get either 3 green or 3 red. The 3 green allows you to reboot and come back up so that you can continue the fight. But just like with real boxing, every time you come back up, your robot is going to get weaker and weaker with that. And you can see that here, they actually reboot it and their last battery got broken. So they'll come back at full health, but it's less health every time that you reboot. So this will allow you to have a game of comeback moments, raising the stakes and adrenaline pushing every time that this happens. So the game itself consists of 2 phases, a battle phase and a tooling phase. So in the battle phase, players will be simultaneously playing cards from their hand. So unlike most other deck builders, instead of one person playing the entire hand and then going to the other, both players are playing at the same exact time. And then they can use movements to move their robot around the ring, allowing them to get into critical positions, capitalizing on bonus damage, creating a tense and tactical environment. You can see in this screenshot that the blue token robot is actually facing the side of the red token robot. So he has a little bit of an advantage at that angle. And then the tooling phase allows the player to spend points to upgrade their robot or add new techniques into their repertoire. So successfully rebooting, like we talked about earlier, also grants you more points, so it creates a kind of catch-up mechanic for players that are going behind. Each phase, the players will be able to customize their robot in real time. So this tooling phase allows you to see, okay, last round I noticed that they were playing a lot of attacking cards. So I'm going to try and buy more movement or more defensive cards to kind of offset that. Or maybe I want to double down on offense to go against them. The players can choose from one of 7 unique robots, each with unique abilities, signature moves, and powerful ultimate abilities. So each robot has its own custom starting deck of 10 cards. So you'll be able to combine deck building, positional strategy, and variable upgrades each match, creating a unique match every single time that you play the game. With these, you can adjust the game difficulty with the different game modes, the different fighters, and the different cards that you get every single time that you play. So whether you're new or a seasoned player, it's going to be a challenge no matter when you play. And on the right hand side, I commissioned artwork for one of the robots just to kind of give a sense of what theme I was kind of going for. If you ever watched Real Steel, I was kind of going for that more gritty, darker tone instead of the cartoony, shiny robots. Since this is boxing, they're beating the crap out of each other. We want to see dense, we want to see oil. Without the slog of a long setup or a complex upkeep, this kind of sits in the area of a quicker deck building game with simultaneous turns for low downtime. The reboot creates fun comebacks. The visual appeal of using the top of the box creates an actual look of a boxing ring. There's a modular solo mode, and because of the way I have this set up, it's highly expandable with more robots. You can add more techniques to it, more upgrades for the robots to add. I also have ideas for locations and coaches to add into the mix as well. And if I can down the road, I want to add a campaign for the solo mode as well, if you ever played like Mortal Kombat or Tekken, they always have like a story mode for the fighters. That is something that you can also do with this. It comes with about 150 cards, battery tokens, fighter tokens, and battery boards in this small box. I've done quite a number of tests where I've seen a strong table presence with it. I've gotten plenty of positive feedback from the playtesters, especially at conventions that I've been to. So going over to the playtesting area, I have a couple of quotes on screen from players that have played the game. I've been creating the game for about 5 years now with a little over 100 playtests via Tabletop Simulator, hobby stores in my nearby area, and PAX Unplugged as one of my main areas that I go to. And almost every single time that I've played, I've had players asking, when can I play again? Or, hey, when is this coming to Kickstarter or like self-publishing so that we can actually play this? And then the last thing I want to show you guys is I do have some data from my own forums that I did. So on here you can see I had people asking like, "Hey, what was your experience with the game on a range from 1 to 10?" There is a 1 on here. I do want to mention that I did reach out to that person. They clicked the wrong thing thinking that 1 was the best. So
Okay.
on average, usually between a 7 and a 10. So I think on average it's about like a 8 to 8.5, which not terrible. Outcome of the game being close. As you can see, there is some 1s and 2s, and I do want to mention that is more from the earlier playtests that I did. I've been constantly revamping the game each playtest and improving it. So as I improved it, I was getting more 3s and 4s on that, meaning it was a lot closer every single time. And for the feel of the length of the game, like I said, 30 to 60 minutes, majority of playtesters feel like that is a really good sitting spot for the game. So with this, I'm just looking for a publisher that is willing to work with me and bring this to life. And honestly, I really hope that you guys would be willing to join into the competition, and maybe one of you will be the next RBL champion.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Chris, why don't you start tonight? I'm formulating a few thoughts here, if you don't mind.
You're good.
Sorry, I had a video playing in the background. I didn't want it to come across on the stage. Thank you very much for the pitch. Appreciated it. This looks awesome. I love robots. I love boxing. First, I always like to start with: do you have any questions for us as a publisher? Any sort of anything you're dying to know about either publishing more broadly or us as a publisher that we can help answer?
Yeah, I guess one question I do have for you guys is when you do sign someone on for a game, how exactly do you guys typically work with whoever you're signing?
Loaded question.
It's it's going to depend, right? It's going to depend on the designer or a team of designers, their particular needs, how involved or uninvolved they'd like to be, and then whether or not they're sharing the risk with us in terms of the investment going into it. So
Gotcha.
I think typically there's sort of industry standard percentages and contracts that most publishing companies use. We try and be a bit more bespoke and nuanced about it. We like to talk to the team or individual we're dealing with and see kind of where they're at. I think it's a much better way to do things. I think that everybody can kind of like align their incentives better when you do it that way. And so we're all over the gamut on that in terms of working with designers. Some of them want to literally take half the risk and receive a much higher percentage of the revenue. Others want to self-publish later in the future, so they want to learn, so they want to be involved. They want to be on the calls with the manufacturer. They want to be making decisions alongside of us. We are really totally comfortable with any level of involvement and or relationship you want to have. I think that there's going to be like key milestones, obviously, with working together in terms of where the project's at, what we think needs to get done. And we'll be checking in along those points. But I mean, typically, we're pretty close with everyone we're working with. You'll hear from us often. Just hop in our DMs. It's not sort of as formal as shoot us an email anytime you want to chat. You can just kind of direct message us here on Discord. That's why we started to build the community that we did here, where
No,
it's
that's
we're
cool.
pretty much yeah, we're 24/7 on Discord. It's probably the easiest way to reach us, and we're doing almost all of our business here, which is great. Our community's there, the designers are
Mhm.
there. A lot of our other business partners are on it, so it makes it really simple to get things done. I hope that answers the question.
No, that definitely does. And then the only other question I have is, in terms of art for games, how exactly do you guys plan to work with whoever you're signing? Because I know some publishers tend to be like, I want full control over art. And like for me personally, like I have a vision, and obviously I know like you guys are a business. You guys are going to have your own methods and things that you want to do. Is there a kind of not exactly 50-50, but is there a working method that you guys do with who you're signing?
Yeah. So, as with the last question, it's pretty nuanced. It depends on who we're dealing with. But I would say that our standard process is going to be we have an art partner, also an investor in the business called Cold Castle Studios.
I put
They
the
just
link in the chat.
Yep, link it there. They're very well known for doing their game logos. And there's two ways with which we'll be working with them. The first is if a designer comes to us with a game that has absolutely no art done, we would obviously scope the work with them. That would then inform how
Hmm.
we sort of go about the contracting phase based on how much it's going to cost to get the game completed. Um, usually that's a pretty quick turnaround. They can scope it quickly. The other is the art is already done, and there are independent sort of benchmark. We will send a finished game that has all the artwork done already to Cold Castle and say, hey, what do you think? Good enough? Industry standard enough? Does it meet the marketability of tabletop gaming? They'll come back with a grade, and or fixes and or tweaks. So they almost work as like an art consultancy for us, for
Oh, it's
games that
pretty
are already
cool.
complete. So we have no problem allowing a design team that's already got finished artwork and a finished game to come in and to publish as is. We are not controlling. My background is in fine arts. I'm an artist myself, so I love collaboration. I think that our whole company loves collaboration, and we are not married to one particular style. I think it should fit the theme. It should help kind of bring a lot of immersion into the theme. And if it doesn't do that, you wouldn't get a passing grade when it gets to the cold castle phase, and then we'd come back and we'd talk. So it's highly collaborative. That's probably our favorite part about designing games. Look, I'll let you answer on
Okay.
this a little bit as well, but like we absolutely love the artwork process. So we'll be as involved or uninvolved as you want us to be, and then before publishing, there's always a check by our art partner to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll
Yeah.
double click on both of those questions real quick. Not in a long-winded format, but at the core of everything we're doing, we're trying to do it differently than the way the industry does it today. Typically, it's very difficult to even get time with a publisher. You have to cold call, you have to cold call, you have to hit
Yeah.
them, hit them, hit them. We hate that. If I'm being perfectly transparent, we don't care that we own a company. We're just everyday guys like everyone else who have a dream, and that dream is to make developing and publishing that much more accessible to the community and make it so that they can learn from the mistakes that we made along the way. We have a lot of experience in making mistakes and even more experience in overcoming those mistakes and making them into wins for ourselves. And we want to share how to win with the community, but we don't want it to be like, those are the Adventure Together guys, I'm nervous to talk to them. Screw that. We want everybody to come up to us because good ideas can come from anywhere. And I'm always reminded of like Lord of the Rings and Gandalf's just sitting there and he's like, and I'm going to butcher the quote and Chris will probably know the quote better than me, but it's like something where he's like, I find that great things come
It's like
from small people or something like that, whatever it is.
you can't on a recorded call butcher a Lord of the Rings quote
I'll butcher whatever I want
to
to.
an
I'll
audience full
butcher
of
it.
nerds.
That being said, that being said,
I'm offended.
um,
That was not the quote at all.
I'm glad I offended you. That's my goal for today. Check. So that's one way we're doing things differently. The other part is that we want to, and this is a way I'm going to say it, we want to wrap our arms around the project and be a part of it with you. We don't want to take the project away from you and say, this is the way it's going to be done. Because you had a vision for this all along. You've been putting your heart and your soul into it for years and years and years. It's just, it doesn't make sense for us to come in and say, we know better. We know better when it comes to manufacturing and fulfillment, but when it comes to your game, you know it better than everyone. You've been playtesting it. You know what the feedback is that you're getting. And we want to make sure that you're as much a part of it as you want to be. And that's where I think Chris mentioned we kind of work with the designers in different ways to tailor our approach to what your needs are. So some of the pitches we saw yesterday, artwork was pretty much done. At that point, we would just send it off to our partners, Cold Castle, and say, give us our stamp of approval that it meets our standards. Great. We're not going to go in and rip their art apart. There's no point in us doing that and you know, backtracking all that time. But for somebody like you who's like, I'm looking for art direction, that's where we can step in and say, hey, we'd love to be a part of the art direction, and we'd love to be a part of your playtest, and we'd love to help you continue polishing the game. So just to double click on those two questions, we're here in the capacity that is needed by the designer, and we're here to hold your hand, not pull you behind us.
No, I appreciate the answers from both of you. It's really insightful, and honestly, I really appreciate it, especially coming from pitching a lot the last year. Like you said, cold pitching sucks. It is not fun for anyone involved. So, like, I
Absolutely.
really appreciate this opportunity and being able to talk to you guys a lot. So, thank you very much.
We appreciate you pitching your awesome ideas. I think that the one last thing I'll say about the art too is, and back to Nick's point, is you would lose the authenticity of a project if you took it in a totally different direction from the
Hmm.
vision it began with. I think that's really, really important. I think there's a spirit that comes with a game when it's designed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's translated through the art, the mechanics, whatever it might be, but you don't want to mess with that, or you might ruin what was great about it in the first place, or what you liked about it in the first place, and why you wanted to publish it in the first place. So we actually tread pretty carefully around that kind of stuff, and we would only, you know, we would only need for changes to be made if it really was going to be a problem for the marketability of the game, and if we thought it was going to hurt the project. At which point it would just be a conversation. We wouldn't come in
Yeah.
and say we're changing it. We'd be like, no, let's talk. How can we fix it? And how can we fix it together? Again, our brand is adventure together. We really live those values. It's how we do business. All right. Any other questions for us or
No,
nope? Okay.
you are good to go.
All right, so I'll dive in on this. I love that you're using the box as the ring. Big fan of boxing. I like the way the robots are charging and recharging. I have a really good understanding from your pitch of how the game plays, which is fantastic. Um, I assume what I'm looking at right here is everything that would be included in the box.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of the game as it's set up on the table.
Okay. How long have you been designing?
About 5 years or so now.
5 years on this game, or in general
Yeah.
as a designer on this game? Okay.
This is my first game. It's about 5 years on and off. I took some breaks when I got married, bought a house, had a kid, obviously. But yeah, about 5 years or so.
Okay. Awesome. Do you plan to expand on this? And what would the plans for expansion look like?
Yeah, so like I was bringing up earlier, I have several ideas for expansions. uh, Locations specifically for each game. So each location would have a specific mechanic for that location. Could be something like specific tiles in the ring have a effect where you can't heal on it or repair. I mean, another location might be you always deal more damage at this location. I also have ideas for adding coaches for each player's team. So each coach would have its
Hmm.
own special ability as well. Of like maybe during the tooling phase they give you extra points so you can get more items, or maybe during certain interactions with the ropes, you actually heal instead of getting damaged. Little things like that. And then on top of that, like I said, because this is a character driven fighting experience, a lot of fighting games are built around their characters. So this is very easily expandable by having multiple other characters with different abilities and themes with them. I didn't get to show you too much, but here you can see some of the different characters that I had set up with it, and the way I designed it is each of these characters for the base game is actually designed around a specific mechanic in the game. So the Viking, which is the one on the right hand side, is more of the aggressive attacking style robot. He doesn't have a lot of defense or movement because his whole thing is about hitting hard and hitting fast. Whereas someone like the turtle is very slow, doesn't have a lot of movement, but is very defensive. Things like the trash robot is built around because it's a deck building game. He allows you to cycle through your deck faster, get through your discard, look through your discard, and use those in his abilities. The Voodoo is based around Baron Semity. His whole thing is using his reboot deck instead of using his regular attacks. So he kind of balances that and gambles depending on what you actually draw from your reboot. So each of the characters for the base game is set in a very specific way to kind of show you how different parts of the game play in a different way. So the idea with more future characters could be things like elemental style robots, fire, earth, lightning, maybe a robot that was built out of wood instead of metal. Things like that, things that people don't really think about. Two-headed robots like from Real Steel. There's a lot of possibilities with that in of itself. And honestly, if I really wanted to, I could even break out of boxing and turn it into almost an MMA style game where I can include grappling and kickboxing as well. So there's a lot of room for expansion character wise. And then gameplay wise, I currently have 3 game modes. Um, Title match, exhibition, and a solo mode. The solo mode can also be expanded in the future for a campaign style where you're actually going through a story for each specific robot. So maybe if you're playing as the Viking, I'm fighting the training dummy first, then I'm fighting the monk, then I'm fighting a mimic of myself before I go on to the next fight. So there's a way of doing that. And then on top of that, like I said earlier, each robot has its own starting deck that is built in a specific way. In the future, maybe we can expand that into multiple starting decks, and each deck is built in a different way, allowing you to have multiple play styles that you can choose for each robot, allowing you to have even more replayability with them. Sorry if that was a long-winded way of going about it.
No, no, I mean, I normally I ask that question to see if you've thought about it, and you have. So, that's great. So, lots of room to expand on the game. Can you go back a slide to the one with all the components
Yeah.
again? Okay. Um, what is the how would you say you use the mechanics to like emulate I'm assuming you have some form of fighting background because you're so interested in MMA and boxing, or you're just a big fan. But how did you sort of emulate the feeling of having a fight through the mechanics?
So
Or was that
the
not a
way
goal?
Yeah, so the way I kind of started with this whole thing is I got into game design through IV Studios actually. They have their own game design area where they encourage their community to also get into it. And my first thought was, okay, well, what kind of game do I want to play? And I always loved deck builders. So I went off of that and I was like, okay, well, what kind of deck builders do I not really see? I see a lot of like medieval fighting games, I see a lot of space stuff. So I was like, I like robots. I don't know a lot of sports ones. Now, I don't have a lot of background in fighting at all, but I know the basics of, you go in, you want to block, you want to move around your opponent, you want to punch. Those are kind of the main big things. So I kind of use that as a basis of, okay, well, if I'm going to have a deck builder, I need attack cards, I need block cards, and I need movement cards. And then I was like, okay, well, if it's just punching back and forth, there's not really a need for an arena. So how exactly would movement kind of incorporate into that? And just like in real boxing, the boxers are constantly moving around the ring. And if they get pushed against a rope or into a corner, it can be the end of the match for them because they might not be able to get out of it. So that's kind of how the positional fighting for this came out of it. So using that, I kind of just merged everything together, and honestly, it was just a lot of me throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what was actually sticking. So the beginning of this, I would say the first like year, honestly was really rough. Getting the core section of it down wasn't too bad. It was the market phase that a lot of deck builders have that was rough for me to figure out. So remember how I said the tooling phase is the 2 upgrades and the 3 power cards that you draw to upgrade or add new techniques. So originally I was trying to figure out how to do a typical market in a deck builder. And honestly, with simultaneous play like this, There was no way to do it without one person having an advantage over someone else. So being able to have both players do it at the same exact time allowed no advantage on anyone and left it completely wide open for strategy because you don't know what your opponent has. You can't lock them out of anything because there's nothing for you to do against what they draw. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. What if anything has been easiest for people to pick up, and what if anything has been the most difficult for people to pick up and or remember during a game?
The easiest thing people have been able to pick up on is just, you have a hand of cards and you play it and you do the effect on it. That is the easiest thing for people to pick up on. I would say the hardest thing for people to pick up on is, so as you see on the tokens, there are little notches around the edges. That's what denotes what kind of bonuses or nerfs that you get depending on how you're facing your opponent. When you're facing your opponent in that way, if neither player moves, the next turn you can rotate 1 degree towards your opponent. So you're never stuck in a bad position. You will always be able to get out of a bad position either by moving or by just waiting your time with it. And that kind of auto movement sometimes gets people a little uh, tripped up on.
Okay. And this is my last question. I'll hand it off to Nick. Would you say that even if you lose the game, you had fun, or does it feel typically like the loser is kind of sour about it, wants to get back in?
I would say 95% of the time, most people, when they're done playing, are really hype and really want to play again, are happy about playing again. There is a very small percentage, and I'll say the reason why. So the reboot mechanic that I said earlier, how you draw cards and you keep drawing until you get 3 green or 3 red. If you're playing in a normal match with 4 batteries like this, there is a 20% chance that the first time you reboot, you could get all 3 of your failure cards on the first time. It's a chance, it's a low chance, but when it happens, sometimes people don't feel too great about
Yeah, well, nobody likes to get knocked
that.
out in the first round, but it happens.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, awesome. I'll hand it off to Nick then. Those were all for my questions. Thank you very much.
yeah, of course.
Can you go to your playtesting feedback for me?
Yeah, this one
The
or the
next one.
next one.
Yeah, the next one. So I kind of locked in. It looks like people are enjoying the game. It looks like the outcome of the game, which I don't expect to always be close. You just kind of explained that
Hmm.
sometimes you get those one-time knockouts, thing like that. But I really locked in on the length of the game here.
Hmm.
Um, what do you think causes your game to go an hour instead of 30 minutes? Is it the ability to reboot multiple times and heal over and over?
Sometimes I would say the more common instance of it being longer is analysis paralysis, to be quite honest. There
Mm,
is a lot of cases where, especially people that are used to strategy games, are very much like, I want to optimize the best possible way for me to play this, which is great. But at the same time, when you're sitting there looking at the 4 or 5 cards in your hand and you're trying to figure out what to play, if you're taking several minutes every single round to do that, it can definitely add on more and more time, which can make it longer. Um, Sometimes it's also just people have questions like, oh, like, how does the rotating work, or what happens when I get pushed into the ropes? And that might just be like a minute or so tangent of just, hey, this is what happens, this is how it goes, giving a quick explanation of it. But majority of it is usually analysis paralysis. Uh, so if both players reboot all the way down to their last battery, then yeah, it's going to be a longer game. But honestly, those type of games are really fun to watch because both players are really into it because they're like, I'm on my last battery. This is either going to be my win or not for both of us.
got it. So that analysis paralysis hits pretty hard then, or can, and I can see that plenty of games that I've played where I've sat there
Hmm.
with people that I won't name, and they sit there and take forever to take a turn. Okay, understood. Is there anything you think you can do to try to mitigate that?
I usually try my best to explain in the beginning, especially during the teach, like, I try and treat everyone as if they don't know what a deck builder is or know exactly how effects work. So I usually spend the teach going over it very specifically, and then the first round or two, I try my best to explain these are all the effects that happen. This is the order that it happens in. And I just try and make sure that they understand and answer any questions as early as possible, hoping that that helps with them. And I'll even give people tips as I'm playing against them, like, hey, this is what could possibly help you if you have this in your hand. Like, if you have a movement card, I really recommend you using it here. Or if you're going to move, I recommend you going to this spot and not this spot because this will help you in the long run. So I try my best to just kind of walk them through it a little bit.
Got it. Do you find that this happens more with people who have played it several times and know the deck really well, and that's why they kind of get into this analysis paralysis where they're trying to be as optimal as possible, or do you find that this happens with new players more frequently?
I find it more frequently with new players. I find the players that constantly come back and play the game because they now know how the flow of the game works and what type of cards can come up. They know, hey, I can't guarantee certain things are going to happen. They also know because each character has a very specific card or set of cards that make up their deck, they know, okay, well, he played these first three cards. I know he only has these possible cards left in his deck. So a lot of people tend to kind of pick up on that a little bit faster after a couple of games. They're like, okay, he played this. I know for a fact I should be safe to play this, so they won't think as much about it.
Got it. And what would you say your target audience is for this game?
Um, I would say probably teenagers and adults more commonly, especially those that like mecha and fighting, especially anyone that likes shonen, like anime and manga. I think would enjoy this a lot because there's a lot of high tension moments of, oh wow, he really pulled off a high combo with this. I've seen someone before in one of my playtests. Surprisingly, he managed to pull off around like 15 points of damage in a single hit, and it completely decimated his opponent. And like that's not a common thing, but when it happened, both players were like, "Wow!" Or I've had a playtest where the one and only time it's happened, I had a double KO where both players were knocked out at the same exact time. And that
That's
was
fun.
just a cool moment to see.
Yeah, I like that. Very cool. Are you still making updates to the game? What's your play testing and kind of feedback loop looking like right now? Are you making modifications? Is the game pretty much done?
I would say the game is probably about like 80 to 85% done. The core game modes and base difficulty are play tested and feel like they're in a good spot right now. I have a advanced difficulty and the solo mode that I'm still kind of testing, but I feel like those are for the most part pretty solid as well.
And that was going to be probably one of my later questions. You said it was 1 to 2 player.
hmm
How exciting is this as a 1 player game?
Surprisingly, I tried to design the solo mode in a way that it feels like you're playing against an actual opponent. So the way a normal game plays, obviously, if I'm playing against you, we each have a hand of 5 cards. We both place a card face down at the same time and flip and reveal. That's how we constantly go through a round. We keep playing cards face down, flipping and
Okay.
revealing. So the way I did this with the solo is the AI robot has a same deck of cards that a normal robot would, but it only plays cards when you play a card. So it's really up to you how much the AI is going to attack back or do things against you. So if you play more cards that cause you to draw cards, you're going to cause the AI to start doing more things against you because now you have more cards to play. So I kind of built it in a way that it's predictable, but not 100% predictable. You're able to understand, okay, it played these cards. I think I know what it's going to play, but I added a what I call a routine effect to the AI. So it has its main effect and then it has a subroutine. So every one of the AI cards has a subroutine where it will be like, okay, I'm playing a jab and the jab does this amount of damage. But the subroutine is if the AI played the jab after, let's say, a movement card, the jab is now going to do extra damage and ignore any of your defenses. So there's little things like that that kind of change up the normal way that the game plays and keeps you on your toes.
Got it. Is there anything unique about the gameplay that people are really drawn to?
I would say there's two things that people are constantly drawn to: the reboot mechanic, which people typically don't see in a lot of games, and
Hmm.
the strategic placement around the ring. Specifically, being able to move to the side or behind your opponent and getting various bonuses or nerfs depending on how you're facing. Those are two main things that a lot of people love and specifically talk about when they're playtesting.
I was gonna say the movement seems like something that would draw me in when I was looking at your board. I do want to double tap on what Chris said. I really
Mhm.
like that you're using the box as your board. I know Boop does that, and I have Boop in my
Mhm.
house. Really, really nice to just flip that thing over, not
Yep.
have to worry about anything else, and you're good to go. So I like that a lot. I think as far as your pitch went, I think surface your target audience. That should be on one of your slides. Who you're going after, what age demographic. I noticed we didn't have that. I do, looking at your data metrics, and I know you put this together today because you and I were chatting back and forth. The only thing that makes me nervous is that 3 on the playtest time. I think that is an action item for you as part of your last 15% to clean up.
So that might actually be my mistake on how I worded my form, because the way I had it set up was 1 is too short and 5 is too long.
I
3
see.
is actually where people feel like it is around what they expect it to be. That is my
Okay.
fault for not explaining that properly, so I apologize.
No, no, that's very good to know. Clears things up a lot for me. So I appreciate that. Um, let me see. Yeah, this is cool. I definitely want to try the game out. I'd like to punch Chris around a little bit, so anytime we could do that is a great time.
No
He's
chance.
no chance. I know. You're an MMA master. I get it. Um, okay, so you're about 85% complete. It seems like your artwork is fresh slate. You have ideas for
Yeah.
where you want the artwork to go, but that all needs to be done from the ground up for the most part.
Yep.
Okay, understood. Do you have a and I meant to ask this to all the other guys too. Do you have any social channels behind this or anything?
Yes, I have a Facebook group, I have Instagram page, BGG page, which I don't update as often as I probably should. I also have
Sure.
my own Discord that I post in there with updates, ideas for things I want to do with it. It's also where I talk to a lot of people, to past playtesters, and talk about like, hey, do you think this kind of update would work? Does anyone feel like this might be a little overpowered? I'll try different things out and then post it in there and get some kind of feedback from everyone.
Very cool. Okay. Let me just check myself here. Last question.
Yeah.
Overall, what genre would you place this game in?
I am very bad with the genres on
That's okay.
BGG. um,
What does it
z-
remind? What's a game that it reminds you of? Or was there a game of inspiration?
Inspiration wise, a little bit came from Moonrakers, mainly for the deck building part of it and everyone kind of playing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, while testing this, I actually got to get actual boxers to play test it, and I actually got to play 2 other boxing games at the same time, which ironically, all 3 of our games were completely different from each other. So that kind of also helped me inspire keeping it different enough from them that even if we did launch at the same time, that I wouldn't be in complete competition with them.
Got it.
I have another question. How long
Yeah.
does it take to teach typically?
Depending on if the person is familiar with general deck building and playing, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay,
That's pretty fast. That's good. Okay.
that's great.
Uh,
I think my final thoughts are I'll echo Nick and I want to play, of course. So once we're done with the pitch events, I think we have a couple more tomorrow. Let's DM and make sure we set a time to do it. I'm assuming it's up on TTS.
Yes, I have a
Yes.
TTS
Okay.
mod for it. Everything's set up on there. Definitely let me know when you guys are free. I'm typically free after about 8 or 8:30 p.m. EST. But if that doesn't work, just let me know and we can try and figure something out.
Once the kids are down, right? Because that's my life.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why at 8:30 every night I get online. Okay.
Yep.
This was really great. I appreciate you taking the time. I think I gave you a little feedback on the pitch itself. The other thing I would do is I would take a little more time on your slides and just make them just a little more appetizing from an artistic perspective. Make sure they're laid out really, really cleanly. But other than that, I think your pitch, you covered the game within your pitch. I understood the game. I understood the goal of the game. I understood mostly how to play. And the playtesting metrics were really, really great. Just need that target audience, some detail on how you've been marketing or who you would intend marketing to this to. Other than that, I think you covered most of the main points I was looking for.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I have two final pieces of feedback. Oh, what drew me to it the most from your sales sheet was actually the genre, was the mixture of the boxing and fighting combat with cards and robots, which I thought was unique and kind of had its own little niche. So I like that a lot. And I think you're a really strong communicator. So I think that you have, if you're going to be doing pitches, you're good on that front. You're able to articulate the game and the ideas really, really well. So thank you again. Thanks so much. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to playing it.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to let me pitch this to you. So again, thank you very much. This was a wonderful experience, and I really appreciate all the feedback that you've given me.
Absolutely. Very much appreciate it. Have a great night.
Hey guys,
You
before
too.
you leave, I just want to do a quick pitch for an event that's happening on Pop-Up, and maybe you guys can spread the word for me. Coming up at the end of April, April 28th specifically, we are starting the Game Journey. Game Journey is a 2-month adventure where there are going to be 4 segments that are 2 weeks long each. In those 2 weeks, we are going to start with a lore community build. So there's going to be an initial prompt setting up the world building, and then people are going to respond to that prompt and other replies to build out an entire universe of lore. Followed by that, we're going to have an art phase where we're going to have artists come in and illustrate pieces of the lore that inspire them and draw them to it. The next phase of the game journey is the game jam. It's 2 weeks where players are going to construct games from the existing lore and art that already exists from the community. And the last segment is going to be 2 weeks of playtesting those games, followed by a voting session. Each segment of the game journey, the first 3 segments I should say, are going to have a $100 cash prize available, $60 to first place and $40 to second place. And it's free to enter, just be a part of the Pop-Up Playtest community. So I just wanted to throw that out there and, sell a little while we're in the middle of an event.
That sounds incredibly cool. Pop-up universe.
Pop-Up universe.
Fun. I like that.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you, Pat. We'll do a shout out in the Discord. Send us a write up of what you want us to
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Chuck.
everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful night,
Great
everyone.
night.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.